Hello, welcome to Northampton Maths and Economics Tutors website. Today we are exploring aggregate demand. Now, aggregate demand is the total demand in an economy at a given price level. So what I've done over here is I've taken, let's say in the British economy, there are 5 markets or 5 industries, which are call center, beef, banking, insurance and retail. And in each market, there is a demand for 10 units. Now this is to simplify the addition. So if we total up all these quantity demanded, it'll become 50 units at the given price level P. So total demand in the British economy, we can say is 50 units at the price level D. And we can see over here, that's the aggregate demand curve. As the price level goes up, we tend to consume less. So the total aggregate demand should diminish. Or if the price level falls, because our real wages will increase, we will consume more. So aggregate demand increases. So how do we calculate aggregate demand? AD equals C plus G plus I plus X minus M. C stands for consumption, which is made up of demand from all households and firms. Investment is the buying of capital goods by firms to create consumer goods. G is the government spending in infrastructure or in the Whitehall salaries. What you've got to take care of is that it does not include transfer payments of welfare benefits, which, as I've explained earlier on in national income, that welfare benefits, there is no direct output associated. It's not given out as a wage. So it's not included in any aggregate demand. Net exports, which is your exports take away imports, means firms and households import goods and services that are cheaper from abroad and export goods to abroad that are cheaply created in Britain. So any change on these components of aggregate demand will increase or diminish the aggregate demand. So looking at why we move on the aggregate demand, or let's say for example the original price is P, and if it falls down to P2, the demand will move up by 2, or if the P price increases to P1, then the demand will fall down to Y1. Why does this take place? The first thing is to look at the consumption by household and firms and decrease if the price level goes up, as there are no cheap loans available. Consumption can also decrease due to inflation, as money is worth less. However, consumption can increase if the price falls, as what has recently happened in America. The discovery of shale gas has brought down the prices of energy. Government spending is independent of this model and fixed by the government policy outside the model. Price level can increase if the rate of interest and savings become attractive as compared to investments, hence less investments. High prices of British goods means they are less competitive, and therefore people from abroad will buy them less, and reduced exports, which will bring down net exports and hence contract the aggregate demand. Factors that cause shifts in the aggregate demand means when the aggregate demand moves outside or outward, towards the right, AD2, or the aggregate demand moves leftwards, or AD1. I have given out reasons over here. If the interest rates are low, even if the price levels are high, what people can do is take out cheap loans, and hence the aggregate demand will shift rightwards. Or if the interest rates are high, then instead of spending money, people will save. When they save, there is less demand in the economy, hence AD will move leftwards. It's not only about the cheap availability of loans. We know that the Bank of England has kept the interest rate at 0.5%. Therefore, the consumption should increase, but there is no money available in the economy as the banks are not lending, hence the AD has fallen down. Changes in demographics also makes difference, because like people getting older will lead to an increase in demand. They will save less, unlock savings from their houses especially, and consume more. And the government policy. If the government is following an expansionary policy, that is a budget deficit, the government is spending more money than it's collecting in revenues, it will increase the AD or move it right. Shift it right. The pound becomes weaker. This means that the British goods will become more competitive, and people from abroad, or let's say from Euro, will find British goods cheaper. They will buy more British goods, hence increasing a demand, shifting AD right. We need to understand at the moment that the interest rates and the availability of money, which is also known as quantitative easing, are fixed by Bank of England. Current Bank of England base rate of interest is 0.5%. The bank has pumped in £375 billion in the British economy by buying government debts from commercial banks. The question is, if the banks passed out on the money, or the commercial banks you're talking about, passed on the money to the consumers for consumption? If not, why not? You need to research this. Fiscal policy is about government collecting money through taxes, then spending it in the economy. The government spends more than it has collected. We call it budget deficit, the expansionary policy. And if it spends less and collects more, it is called budget surplus. These days, UK economy, or the government, is going through austerity measures. What that means is that the government is collecting more money, spending less money. Why? Because we are trying to pay off our debt. Austerity measures are being done to repay national debt, which has spiraled during the time of the credit crisis, and the government had to borrow a lot of money to generate aggregate demand in the economy, also to capitalize the banks such as the Royal Bank of Scotland, its TSB, and Northern Rock, which it took over, and Bradford and Bingley Bank. There are two types of exchange rate systems, the fixed exchange rate system and the floating exchange rate system. Countries like China, they manipulate their currencies to make their exports more competitive in the economy, and US has always complained about it. On the other hand, the countries like UK, US, they leave their currencies to market forces of supply and demand and let the value of their currency float accordingly. I have given an example over here to explain to you how China and US operate their currency in the market. Multiplier effect. Multiplier effect, if we look at the diagram over here, the AD, if we put some money in the economy, will shift over here, but the multiplier causes it to shift further outwards to the right. Multiplier can be negative as well. What multiplier is, if person A gets £100 in the British economy, he will save some money, let's say 10% of it, and then go on to spend the £90 to let's say that £90 is the income of person B in the British economy. He saves another £9 and then goes on to spend 81 quid. So this way the original £100 has become 100 plus 90 plus 81, which is £271. So what it happens is, I've put this down over here, example, to explain to you what is multiplier effect. So multiplier effect causes the aggregate demand to shift further right. We can also have a negative multiplier, which will actually shift the AD demand further left. There is a broad criticism of the multiplier effect, which is it is difficult to measure the size of multiplier as complex formulas are used. Then there is a time lag for the national income to flow from one person to the other, because if someone receives an income, we will not spend it on the same day. It takes time for that expenditure to become someone else's income. Then, for multiplier to take proper effect, there needs to be spare capacity in the economy. Why? Because we are demanding more goods, and if there is no spare capacity, then instead of the output increasing, it will only result in the price level going up, so causing net inflation. I've actually put this down over here for you to research. Can multiplier have a negative effect on an economy? The accelerator effect. Right. If you look over here, this bus shows you that there is huge demand for transportation because we've got people sitting on the roof, people hanging on the back. So this is an overcrowded bus that can make the company invest in more buses if the demand is always high. So if this bus was worth £50,000, they will have to put another £50,000 to buy another bus. So we can see that more money being invested in capital goods to meet the demand, or money that comes in from income. So the investment in capital over here at the moment is more than the income that will come through the demand in that given period. Right? Because capital goods last for a number of years. Let's say, for example, if you have a car, you won't change car every year. It will last you for, let's say, a minimum of 3 years or maybe more. An increase in aggregate demand result in a proportionately larger increase in investment. It is called the accelerator effect. Short term, the firms will respond by consuming their excess stock, outsourcing. But if the demand like this is permanent, is consistent, then you're better off investing in new capital. This is also called the capital output ratio. And how do we measure it? By IT equals A in brackets YT minus 1, which is IT is the investment in time period, A is accelerator coefficient, and this is the change in real income. In criticisms of capital output ratio is the formula assumes A to be constant, but it isn't and changes because it depends on productivity of people. Then time lags are not taken into account in this formula, though we've spoken about income, current income less income in the previous year. Spare capacity is not taken into account. Again, as I said, explained over here, that the firm will first reduce their stocks. They'll probably outsource their excess demand, or maybe they might even ask workers to do overtimes or an extra shift.